We have something different tonight. We have not only an oil painter, but he's a preservationist, which is something we have yet to encounter, and you incorporate that into your art as well. He's a native, this is Cory Bonnet, so you can come on. He's a native of Pittsburgh. He went to Edinburgh and had a BFA in drawing and a minor in art history. And he, I don't know how you got involved in preservation. Is that just? Follow it.
None of this is planned.
But by 2017, he was named Preservationist of the Year by the Young Preservation Association of Pittsburgh. So it is something near and dear to you, I guess, at this point in time.
And they just made me the chair.
Oh.
I was on the board and then I left. And then I got the award, and then a few years later, they asked me to chair. Great. And basically, all you're going to see here is I just use this as like to remember all the twisted past that got me to where I am, because none of this, like I said before, was planned out. I am a preservationist. I have a LEED accreditation, for sustainable building and design. But like in my heart, I'm an oil painter. That's my true passion, what I love to do. I went to Edinburgh University. I was a terrible student in high school, a terrible student in grade school. All I did was draw every class all day long, doodles and sketches. And that's really all I ever thought I'd do. Made it into college by the skin of my teeth. And my last semester at Edinburgh, I took a painting class and fell in love with it. The instructor I had was everybody, he was not the favorite teacher at the school. He was very strict. Here's how you do it. This is right. This is wrong. But it was all technique, and it was all learning about the materials and how to use them. And for someone who didn't really have an idea or understanding of the medium, it was exactly what I needed. So absolutely love that. Graduated with a degree in drawing and a minor in art history, which really limited my career paths. But I took a few classes in graphic design at La Roche, got a job at Advo, which was the Shopwise wrap mailers, worked with Linda there. And that's how I got introduced to this group. And just kind of moved through there into a job. Advo was sold. Everyone kind of looked for new work, and I ended up at a specialty building supply company. So that's kind of where, like, all this time from my last semester in school until getting this new job at DSI, which was all hardwood plywood supply and wood coatings. I was painting, at night in the spare time, with kids, with wife. Everyone forgiving me for being, crazy when they'd be talking to me. And clearly my brain was in the garage thinking about like that last brush stroke that totally deflated the painting the night before. But working at DSI and getting involved with building materials, wood in particular, I had free reign and cheap materials. So I switched from canvas and totally just started working on panels exclusively. They had a whole wood coating section, so I'd hang out with those guys. I was there. I was the marketing and advertising director. But I ended up hanging out in the warehouse with the warehouse guys and talking to the wood coating guys all the time, figuring out the different panels, the different coatings, how they work. And what I ended up doing is my work switched to wood panels, and then taking dry pigment, thinning it way out. Everything wrong you could do with pigments, paint thinner and linseed oil, but leaving it as a wash so that it could have wood grain kind of show through on it. So it's hard on a screen. Like, this is a 6 foot tall painting, 4 feet wide, to give you an idea of scale. At some point, I stopped using new materials and started working with salvage materials. Arborade, which is a show that Treat Pittsburgh used to do that was very art-centric, had one requirement to be in their show, And it was, you had to use salvage materials. And I was like, I can do that. Yeah. And I needed to get into shows, like you want your work to be seen. Treat Pittsburgh was a great organization and an awesome venue in town. So I got some doors at Construction Junction. They were super cheap, oak panel, center panel of a door. I think they were from an old high school, cost me $20. You know, it's this beautiful piece of wood, and I don't know if I can zoom. But just using the wood grain and the washes, it really transformed the whole way I thought about approaching a painting. So sometimes I did, like I strip the old finish off. Sometimes I do primer. Sometimes I just go straight into the wood. It's just like, I'd love to say it's always a decision made on like, technical, but a lot of times it's like, man, I really want to start this painting. I don't have anything to do the ground painting. I just want to get started, and then I fight it the entire time and think, man, do I wish I would have primed that canvas. Yeah, let's see if I can shrink this again. All right. So moving from, like door panels into really distressed, like these are floor joists from demolished homes in Lawrenceville. So these are panels that are joined together by the guys at Urban Tree. Are you familiar at all with Urban Tree Forge? Jason Boone and Nate Lucas. Awesome. They take fallen city trees, salvage wood, make furniture. The reception areas for Google and Uber, all this stuff. But they started with just pulling stuff out of like when the cemetery would lose a tree, they'd take that and they put this stuff together for me. And what I thought was great about using these materials, other than the character, is when you go, or at least when I approach like a brand new, clean, perfectly white canvas, or I don't know how many sheets of really nice fine watercolor paper I have that I've never used because I'm terrified of ruining them. It's like with the first mark, starting with something that has like this will be a painting here eventually. And starting with it with all this, nail holes and peeling paint and imperfections on it to begin with, really takes the pressure off that I'm going to screw it up. So it allows me to just kind of start working and not think about, if I'll ruin it, it's more how do I work with it. So that kind of translated using the demolished materials into working on like the preservation idea. So like Tom Ayub and City Banana are gone. They've been demolished. Development happens. Development can be super good for areas. I mean, it's an injection of capital and resources that sometimes aren't available. Other times it can be pretty destructive and kind of rip, the soul out of the neighborhood. So I've been working really hard to do, like when it comes to preservation, it's like, it should make sense. You want the building to maintain its life. You want it to make sense in the neighborhood. So it's still contributing and its story continues. When they're demolished, or if I do paintings of these things, the whole idea is that it is to remind people what was there, or like kind of pull their stories about these scenes. Like this is from, I believe I was on top, I like talked my way to the roof of a convent that overlooks Spring Hill. And it started off with like they let me on the first floor, and then next thing I knew, we were on like the fifth floor, and then she's like, "We should go to the roof." I'm like, "Ah, that sounds great." So this is Troy Hill, Spring Hill, the whole city in the background. This is a 6 foot by 5 foot panel, all from I keep saying that, all from floor joists again.
Your studio must be enormous.
Well, all of these ones so far were done in like a 10 by 10 home studio. And then, nice weather, the garage is like, nobody else had room.
No cars.
Many arguments, many arguments about cleaning up cars in the morning. This one was really like, I just wanted Pittsburgh, like quintessential, vernacular architecture. All of these houses, they just always remind me of like individuals. So there's over 300 buildings in this, individual houses and the city, bridges, Heinz smokestacks, Strip District. Here's the Energy Innovation Center where my studio ended up being. But like this stuff was just all in all, just images I loved, things I passed.
And they're all Pittsburgh, right?
Right. Like, so it was paint what you know, and if I'd strayed from that, I was like, this does not feel like me. And especially with the materials, it's like, so again, demolished house in North Side, take the boards, you can see the saw marks on it from when they milled it. Darn it.
How long does it take you to paint one?
So that's changed, like, as time goes on. I used to stress and like, work on stuff for months or longer. Like there's sometimes there'd be paintings that would hang around forever. Now I paint every morning, 4 a.m. to 7 a.m. just to get it done and make sure I get the time in. So to do something, this is a 44 by 34-inch painting. Those are probably like all in a week's worth of paint. You have to pause, you have to let things set and dry so you don't, get holidays and move stuff out. But so working with the salvage stuff, like the first, I was grabbing floor joists and doors from places. Driving into town, watching, there just seemed to be like this period of time where a whole lot of buildings were getting demolished all at once. St. Nicholas Church on 28, gone. Produce terminal was up for demolition. There was a big fight over that. That's kind of when I got into preservation. And then the arena, they were just ripping that thing down. But I wanted the dome panels. So I called the demolition company every Monday and Wednesday for 9 months. Same time, every time. Talk to the same guy every time, Cory. We thought that was pretty funny. After the first 4 months, it wasn't a joke anymore. And the last time I called, and I was like, this is it. I'm gonna give up. Cory answered, same thing every time. Wendell August Forge was getting them all. And this time he said, hold on a minute. And it was like, oh, that's totally different. Transferred me to the president of the company. He's like, why do you keep bugging my people? And I was like, you really want to know what I want? And I just laid it out for 5 minutes straight. Here's what I want to do. And after, he's like, you done? Like, yeah. He's like, do a small painting for me. Come down with a truck. Take as many as you can. Don't tie anything to the roof of your car. They're like any of these 14-foot panels. So I went down and grabbed a whole bunch. And then started to do just these arena paintings. And they were really like an awesome like stepping stone for me. So it went from like trying to find how it connects to getting something that's so recognizable. And all this time, building a body of work. We had, this sounds like it doesn't make sense, but we had moved. We went from Crafton to moved in with my wife's parents because we were like, this will be quick. Like this, we're gonna be here for 6 months while we figure out and buy our new house. That was 2008, and then the whole housing market like just fell out. We had just got out. 2 years later, we're looking for a new place. We had lived with her folks with 2 boys and our dog in a 3-bedroom house, and everyone got along. So it was like, well, let's all move together again. So when we moved into our new house, everything that we had had in storage for 2 years was delivered, and it was mildew, mold, and ruined. Like they had not stored it. I Googled rug repair because rugs are ruined. Connected with Richard Shahadi in the Strip District. This was 2012. So like all this leading up, this was demolished in 2011, and 2012 met Richard. 2011 met Richard, and he owns Shahadi Rugs in the Strip District. Talked to him. He's 40 years in the rug business, fourth generation Armenian descent. He's a salesman. He is like, he'll get to know your life story in 5 minutes. Found out I was a painter, said, bring some work down. I'd like to see it. 6 months of doing that, he was selling a little bit of it. He took me up to the second floor. It was packed floor to ceiling with rugs and antiques. And he said, we're going to move all this stuff out of here and you're going to turn it into a gallery. And I was like, great, sure, whatever. Thinking it was total nonsense. 2 weeks later, he called, he's like, everything's out, bring all your stuff down. And it's this huge, it's like 4,000 square foot, beautiful gallery space. And then I had to fill it. It was like, just figuring out how this was going to work together. There was no rent. It was like, this will be commission based. It's like a year and nothing's really selling. You're like, don't worry about it. Be patient. You just paint. Don't worry about any of it. Like, you're gonna do fine. Another year, not really picking up. Don't worry about it. So it took like 3 years to really get people in something constant, but his patience with the whole process was just incredible. And the arena stuff, this ended up being like one of the first major pieces I sold to the collector, and then it all just started to kind of ripple out from there. So that one is 5 feet by 4, probably. Destroyed in a fire. They had taken it to Montana for one of their homes, and then moving back in a trailer, the trailer caught fire. So they lost a ton of stuff.
Did you do the painting like in that wash, like you were talking about?
Yeah, so this is straight on the stainless steel. I just washed it with warm water, and it had all these little tiny scratches throughout from decades of being on top of the arena. And it held everything. And I go into this, I don't know what the right way to do it is, so I just kind of experiment and see how it's going to work. A lot of this would do something and wipe it off, and then you'd see a stain left behind it. It's like, that's kind of cool. Working stuff in and let it set for a little bit, and then go right back in with brush with just thinner on it. It's pushing stuff out of the way, and then you're getting this shiny stainless steel coming through that added all these cool effects to it. So, and obligatory sports. Mario Lemieux, this panel, so they all had numbers on them. It could have been a 99, but like, this is a 66. So this panel's 5 feet by 8 feet. It's just a huge single dome panel from the arena. And then a Clemente on recycled or salvage materials. Strip District. So I was doing all this stuff to salvage things. People knew I was like, the demolition guys started like, they'll call me when there's stuff they don't want to throw away. They don't know what else is going to haul. I'm a sucker, so I'm always like, yeah, I'll take it. So then I started really focusing in on produce terminal, like ever since it was going to be redeveloped, was trying my best to figure out how to kind of, it's like a major, it's the heart of the Strip District. Everything was moving in and out of the produce terminal for generations. So I started bugging them. And that took like 3 years. But when I finally did it, these are studies for the major works for the produce terminal I did. These are guys, laying Belgian block on Smallman Street, which is just, it's insane to me. So like the amount of physical labor that and man hours and just all this ingenuity that that was, again, this is in 1930, I think. You know, how can you look at something like Smallman Street, know that you have to hand cut all the Belgian blocks to set it, stand at a 90-degree angle for 8 hours a day, and think that, yeah, let's do it. I there's so much that I look at today that I just don't imagine how it would be done if I just don't know how they could even consider it being possible. So the garage doors on the produce terminal, like when they were renovating, a lot of them were taken down. And I get a phone call like, "Hey, we have some doors. If you want them, come down and get them today." And I was like, all right, drop my kid off somewhere. Hop in my beater Honda Pilot, fly down, and they told me they were 4 feet by 8, like a sheet of plywood. They're like 9 feet long. So I could only jam 2 in the car while I drove, and just hunched down all the way to the windshield. But it was like such a great project, and these ended up being hung back in the produce terminal. So they were in the 17th Street Bridge cut through. Now they're in the new office building, which fortunately is like R.K. Mellon Foundation is right here, so they have to walk past them every day. And then I think it's the CPA, or like Pennsylvania Conservancy or something. So just interior scenes. I just thought it was so fun to do the produce terminal and then have the doors returned.
The answer is no.
More salvage stuff. St. Peter's and Paul in East Liberty, they let me in, said take what
If
you
you
want.
sit here, you might hear this better.
Turn them into a panel and do a painting of the church on them. So did all this, had the gallery pretty set at Shahadi's, was at a meeting in the Strip District for a cleanup organization, and got to talking to this guy after the meeting about his building in the Hill District, the Connolly Trade School. This is
Want to try here?
I'm just going to run through some of these. Sharpsburg.
I can't make it louder.
And then I had done a few steel mills that I had at Shahad's. Talked to this guy about his building. I'm a lead AP, which basically lead is USGBC.
What?
Green building standards for new construction or.
This is live. They're doing it right now.
When I got into it through that hardwood plywood company, none of the sales guys wanted to learn about green building. This was like 2007. They were like, it's a passing phase. No, it's not going to catch on. And the owners asked if I wanted to learn about it, and they were going to pay me to learn this stuff. I thought that sounds good to me. So talking to Bob Meter, who has the Energy Innovation Center, it's a LEED Platinum building. We were talking about the building systems and all this stuff. And I had no background in architecture or anything like that. I just had to read the whole LEED for new construction book to pass this stinking test, And at the time, only architects took the test. But we talked for an hour, exchanged cards, and he's like, "You're an oil painter?" He's like, "Yeah, we've been looking for an artist presence in our building." I said, "Well, why don't you come down to Shahadi's and we'll see if it's a fit." So he came down to Richards, and I had just done some of these mill paintings. Then he walked up the stairs, and I was like, "This is it. We want this in our building." So fast forward to March 1st, 2021, or March 1st, 2020. Sorry, when I signed my agreement for the energy innovations. Sky's the limit. I'm like moving into a big studio. I'm going to do large works. I connected with everyone knows I collect big, heavy, awkward, dirty stuff. Had met a steel scrap guy who connected me with Wemco Steel. This is how they load this stuff up for me. And the first time I went, it was in the Honda Pilot again. But they just laughed at me. I could only grab these 2 pieces, and this is in my garage. So this is like right as I like was getting into the Energy Innovation Center, I started to get all this big material. And this stuff was, my wife was like, you know, hey, can you get that shit out of here a second? Um, so I got into the EIC 2 weeks later, you know, the whole globe shuts down. I'm like, yeah, I can't believe this. So months went by and I was just kind of like, well, I had this gift of this space. I'm going to work as much as I possibly can. At my home studio, which was 10 by 10, I had already done like, you know, I'll have panels constructed that are 3 parts, that they can be 8 feet 9 by 7 feet wide. That was like the max to maneuver from my garage into this room. But I was getting up at 5, like 5 to 7 was my work time, and then get breakfast for the kids and stuff. Now I had a commute, so I was like, all right, I'll get up at 4 or 3:45, depending on how close the deadline is. And I just went in every day and started working on these. These are pattern pieces. So foundry patterns are used in sand casting, where they'll like take this, pack sand around it, take the wood out, pour the steel in, and you have your steel part. Yeah, way more complicated than that. But they have to machine it all. And when these ones are from Webco, so the guys like this big stuff, same process they used over 100 years ago. You know, not much has changed. So I was working on this stuff. It kind of got me into more of a 3-dimensional space. Those 2 pieces that were in my garage, when I was cleaning the garage, I leaned, that one was laying on the ground, the oval, and I just happened to lean the other one on top of it and was like, ah, that would be an awesome little like monument or sculpture. So working with bigger pieces, this is the finished piece for that one. And just from years of doing, you know, working with like Urban Tree, you know, they had a metal fabricator that worked with them. So he did the I-beams for me to connect to the base. And now I'm in 3-dimensional space. Whereas before, my only solution to, you know, if it was a designer or something, was you can hang it on a wall. All new corporate buildings are like open floor plan. Well, that's going. So these are just some more of the Webco stuff. And then while I was working on all of this, the scrap dealer, Chip Barletto, who, like me, like it's more of like an illness or something, where you just want this stuff and to work with it. Like you admire it, you love it, and you can't help yourself. So yeah, it's definitely like something's broken. He had a small steel museum in Newcastle, like just for his own, like basically to store his own junk. He had to close it during COVID, and we had been talking. He's like, I don't know what to do with this stuff. And I had this space in the EIC. I figured I'd be kicked out any day now, you know, because nobody was really buying art during the start of the pandemic. And I said, just bring it all down here. And he was like, thanks, man. Are you sure? Yeah, just bring it all. He's like, you know, I gotta tell you, I'll bring it down, but before I do that, there's this barn in Ohio that has, this is another Webco piece that I did. Let me see if I have pictures. There's this barn in Ohio that has all these patterns. I think you could use some of them. You should come with. And I was like, well, why don't we just like, why don't I partner with you on it? And he's like, yeah, that sounds good. And he was like, there's just a lot of stuff. I want to warn you, there's a lot of stuff. And I realized like real quickly, like steel guys, their perception of space, it's all distorted because they're in 1,000,000-square-foot warehouses. They're dealing with thousands of tons, you know, just like this stuff, the scale is off the charts. So I was like, yeah, no, I got plenty of space, don't worry about it. And then we showed up and started like, so this is the first day of the party. So I've been at the EIC for about a year when all this was kind of presented. So June 2021, all of this kind of like appeared. I was like, what am I going to do with it? No idea. I have a real problem saying no. So I was like, yeah, let's take it all. We ended up moving 10 26-foot box trucks out of the barn. Everything was stored on the second floor. Every piece had to be carried down those steps. And the original guy that collected them built the barn. He was able to drive into the second floor, offload everything. Then they put a wall up, and then trees grew up. So we had to do it this way. I mean, it was nuts. But for someone, that's my son. I thought he looked like that. He looked like a miner, in like 1910. But he was more like just ticked off that Chip wanted to take a picture while he was carrying this thing. He loves doing like heavy labor. He just helped me this morning. He does. He's a big kid. So this is a few years ago. So that's June 2021. He turned 16 last week. He's 6'5", 250 pounds. And we were at a house today because I was like, I hope this doesn't go out to his school. Like, you're gonna be late for school. I need someone to help me. But he's awesome. He loves doing that stuff. And then we move it into the EIC. So here's the loading dock. Nothing is easy moving this stuff. It all has to get to the elevator and then go to the different floors. That's Chip. There's still a couple trucks there, small stuff. It was just like, I can't move this stuff. Chip will tell you himself that I told Linda this already. He said he's like, if Danny DeVito and Andrew Dice Clay had a kid, that's me. He is like awesome, huge heart, like the nicest guy, will do anything for you. But he just loves everything steel and can't help himself but to collect it all. So the building owners were super nice. After the first weekend of moving stuff, they saw it and they're like, hey, grandfather's a carpenter, dad was a carpenter. I love all this stuff. We love that you have it in the building. It's like, that's great news because I have truckloads of it. And they're like, so if you've been to the Energy Innovation Center, it's a former trade school and then a full high school on the other side. The second floor was totally undeveloped. They're like, just throw it in there for now. We'll worry about it later. Now is later, so I'm moving it out again. But this is just more of the loading it in stuff. It was nuts. All the guys that are helping us are from a halfway house in Butler. Super, like, they just want to do better. They want and they're probably the only people that would come back this next day. After doing this the first day. I was so shocked that they returned. It was just like, I can't believe you guys keep coming back. But they loved it. And everyone who was involved in it, when you see this stuff, like they're such small examples, it's hard to take this stuff. But to understand that these pieces are from the late 1890s, early 1900s. So designed, with slide rules and drafting tables, hand-drawn designs, passed off to the pattern maker. Pattern maker builds it out of wood with no CNC, no CAD, nothing, right? And then they cast the piece, have to machine it again with, at the start of all these things with steam power, no electricity even. And then they all have to fit together to build the machines that built everything. And it's like, how did it get done? How did any of what we have, the roads, the sewerage, the power stations, how did they ever do it? There was also thousands of the drawings that were packed in with this stuff that I'm now trying to figure out what to do with. That's another full-time job, but super cool. They're completely out of order. There's no rhyme or reason on how they were stacked in the barn. But after walking in, every now and then I'll be like, I'm just gonna take a look, and then you lose 3 hours. But it's basically how to build a steel. And the railroads, the buildings, the blast furnaces, the brickwork. This is one of my favorites. Boiler rooms. It's just insane. The detail and the drawings, they're definitely works of art by themselves. So that's part. So I get all this stuff, and then it's like, what do I do with it? And the preservationist in you wants to restore, preserve, and exhibit, and show other people like how hard things work. This is insane. How do you expect people to do this work? Really, the biggest self-promotion there, Forbes. The idea was they were making it better for their kids, for the next generations. Like, that was their goal, not self-enrichment. I'm sure obviously everyone wants to have, food and clothing and comfort. It's like, that's what they're working for. But really the driving force was, this is going to be better for my kids. When I first started painting steel mills, it was like, I love the imagery. The more I learned about them and saw like the collapse of them, I'm from Pittsburgh. It was like, when I was young, it was just all the jobs were gone. And then everybody was like, get out of Pittsburgh if you want to do something. There's a real low self-esteem issue with the city. As I learned more, and it was like, well, it was the jobs, and then it was all the ancillary industries gone. But even more than that, it was like the guys working in them every day, they're controlling forces that are just insane. Molten steel, like volcanoes. The guy next to them could get killed if they're not doing their job. They could get killed. And then they leave, and everything that they've been working on all day, they're surrounded by their production, the bridges, the buildings. It's like there's so much meaning in that. I think that is something that was definitely lost too. So
Yeah,
we had our first show October of 2021. So if you're keeping track, we moved everything in June. And I was just kind of like, sorry if I swear sometimes, just like, holy shit, what are we gonna do with all this? But there's no other expression that could like encapsulate the feelings. So we had, I'm at the Energy Innovation Center. This is the Bright Space, which is probably the most beautiful room in the city. And when I say we, all these artists that I'd worked with, like on different little projects, they build panels for me, or I've helped them move, stuff like that. Everyone kind of came around at the same time, and we're like, I'm looking for like something more creative to work. And they had no idea what I had. And they're like, why don't you come and see my space and see what I have here? So the guy from Urban Tree, Nate Lucas, he's like, I want to work with you on this. I'm like, awesome, because you build furniture and really cool stuff. I'd love to have that. And Angela Nira here, she's a designer. She used to do like retail flagship stores, Anthropologie, J. Crew. She'd like do these crazy hanging things. She moved to San Diego. Our kids went to high school together, moved back, and was like, I kind of am like burnout at work. I want to do something more creative. Why don't you come up and check out what I'm doing in my studio? So we set all this stuff up for one show in October. There was a wedding 2 days later, so we had to tear everything down. And there was truckloads of stuff up to be exhibited, but it was good. Like, this is the roadway. If you've been in that building, the whole roadway was filled. We had hanging blueprints. And then, maybe a week or 2 weeks later, everything shut down. It was like, oh. So this is the chandeliers. So this is the night, this lighting guy that I bumped into at a bunch of installations throughout the years. Andrew Machetta, who like another, was like, hey, we have these chandelier things we're building. Would you be interested in coming in and lighting them? And he was all in. He was like, yeah, it'd be awesome. So this is like midnight, the night before the show. I get a phone call. Like I had gone out, I'd been like 24/7. And he's like, you're gonna want to come down. I'm like, oh my God, what happened? He's like, no. He's like, it's totally worth it. And I went in, bright space was totally dark, and he just hit the switch, and it was like, this is gonna be awesome. Just another good shot.
Who did the photography?
So some of these are Tim Hickman, a guy I went to Edinburgh with. Rob Larson did a bunch of them. He works with Dwayne Reeder at the Clemente Museum. This one is my iPhone. Yeah. And then, so it was so soul crushing to tear that whole thing down the next day that I had been using, this is the gymnasium at the building. I've been using that as like a lay down area for patterns, just extra storage. And the day before that October show, they're like, you should lease the gym. I'm like, yeah, it'd be great. And but as I'm trying to get this show together, they're like, so why don't we go over this now? So I started leasing the gym right around that first show. And it was a space that we could just set everything up and keep it up. So it took a while. So if we really started working in the gym, probably like no one did anything in November. After the October show, it was just like no one wanted to see each other. It was just like it was too much. But by December, we started setting up the gym again. And then really getting it into a position to be like an exhibit hall. We did another show in May 2022, which coincided with the AIST Association Iron and Steel Technology, had this huge conference at the convention center. So we were trying to like work off of that. I did these. So Angela, this is the best thing about collaboration. And I had never collaborated with people prior to this project, is stuff you'd never even think of. Like Angela was like, we need something for this back wall. In the room next to the gym, there were these old plotter printers with rolls of paper on them. And it was just kind of like, Cory, just do some smokestacks. I'm like, yeah, sure. So this is powdered charcoal and a push broom. And it was just like, so just get it back, like 5 minutes a piece, and you have these 30 tall smokestacks. It's like my favorite thing, they're so quick and easy. It was awesome. But I never ever would have thought. And it's like it's like, yeah, just do 5 of those. We need like 5 30-foot drawings really quickly. That's my wife, Jess, with 2 other people at the show. She's awesome, very patient. She was like, I know something's gonna come of all this, but we have a kid at college now, so can you hurry up? So actually, that's the plotter and the roll of paper. So this room is outside of the gymnasium. We like just transform it. So using the patterns now, we're really working to get things in like this architectural design, like kind of break into that area. We're working with a glass artist who's casting patterns out of glass. These are like quick, really rough sand casts that he did. But that's Brian Engel. He's awesome. You guys can check this out. Awesome. I always love him. So the idea is to mass produce, create new objects from the patterns, which was their initial, like their original purpose, and do light fixtures and other like design elements with those, like the chandeliers. And I like some of this, I'm not 100% sure I haven't gone through this in a long time. There's Brian, that's the glass artist. That's the piece that's passing around. Some more of them. And then and then using the patterns in other ways. So I don't think I probably haven't updated this stuff recently, but we're starting to build furniture out of them. There's so much, there's plenty to like restore, preserve, and exhibit. And then there's like, all right, I have truckloads, let's make, it's coffee tables and light fixtures. But this is one of my 3-panel paintings. So, each one's 35 inches tall, 7 feet wide. And like sometimes you don't know where to start on something. So I was just staring at, I had 2 of these, just staring at them, then finished the sides, and then saw this pattern laying in the corner and was like, that'd be an awesome like template to get me started. And it was a painting that I'm like really veering off on a tangent here, but I'll keep it short. Like during all the shutdowns, during like everything that was going on, I just kept thinking of like Descent. It was like, man, we are in some like crazy times here. What am I doing? I'm sitting, like, with basically colored dirt and painting on a panel. And the story of Jonah kept popping up over and over to the point where I told this guy Nate Lucas, whoever, like, man, like the idea of Jonah keeps popping in my head. And he sent me an article about a lobster fisherman who was collecting his pots, was swallowed by a humpback whale in Maine. And he's like, dude, you gotta like do something with this. So I researched Jonah. I love old stories, whether they're religious or not. I just love finding there's always wisdom in them because they have existed this long. There's a reason. And the idea that I figured out with Jonah, as a kid, it was like bad guy swallowed by whale pukes him. Like I never got it. The more I read it and the more like I listened to the Jonah story a lot was, well, actually it's just about a person who knows what they're supposed to do and doesn't do it. And it's like, what happens when you know what you're supposed to do and you don't do it? And I'm so guilty of this all the time, is it starts to make like these small little ripples out that like affect you, affect your family, affect everything to the larger scale, where if he doesn't do what he's supposed to do, a whole city's destroyed. But what was so interesting after like reading the story is that I always thought it ended with him, going and telling them, and the people were like, hey, thanks, like, that's awesome, thank you for telling us, we're going to change. But he's not happy about it. He's like resentful and angry because he's been good the whole time. And it's like, isn't that something? Like you'd think he'd be happy that the people started to do the right thing. And I really thought that was something that is like missing today. There's this tendency to not be graceful or not allow people to change, and like to constantly keep them locked in their like the bad things they did. Even when they try to do the right thing, they're punished. It's like, just be happy that they did the right thing. So that's Sideways. Yeah, they're giant. And this one is now almost complete. I'm sorry it's like rotated like that, but so it's a companion piece, which is actually, once I got into the Jonah story, I looked for references that about Jonah popping up other places, and then New Testament, Christ is something greater than Jonah. There's something greater than Jonah. I was like, what does that mean? And I get like really into stuff. And I thought it was, like, well, Jonah swallowed by a whale for 3 days, in the Gospels. Christ is dead for 3 days. Like, maybe that's greater. And I kept like reading and thinking about it. And it was like, well, actually, maybe it's that, Jonah was like angry when people did the right thing. And something that's constant through the Bible, through the Quran, through, Old Testament, which is actually the Torah, is that it doesn't matter when you start doing the right thing. That's the right time. Like, you should be really happy when people do that. So that's a tangent story. I'm gonna wrap up because I do have to get my wife at the airport. This reminded me. Pittsburgh International Airport, they're awesome. Kenny Marshall, I just kind of reached out to him at the right time before they even had any RFQs out, so I didn't have to fill out any paperwork to put a display up in the airport prior to that show that the AIST conference was happening. So we did like a show at the building I'm in, a show like this at the airport. This is all in the span of 3 days was the setup in the shows. So airport setup, the show at the building, double booth at the convention center. And then I did like an idiot, like a one night setup tear down at Carnegie Science Center of 3 large, it was like, this is, what am I doing? But you do it and then you gotta do that again. That we did art prize last year in Grand Rapids at DeVos Place. They're like, do you have anything that would fit this atrium space? They told us it was 3 stories high. It's like 5 stories high. But we show up, with a lot of stuff and built on site, like a 5-story chandelier piece with a painted base. And then this piece, and like, you guys can tell me to shut up whenever. Didn't have anything like really, like there's nothing connecting it to the base piece. The night before, set up in the hotel room, I just had like this. I have my wheel on I think it's like a feeder roller for like a saw. I was using as a stand and just painted that steel metal scene. But like, let's just get something on here quick, and as long as no one touches it, we'll be fine. But it's super loose. I mean, it is like
Still.
just quick through it. Well, so I do a drawing out on parchment paper. So like, I love Costco's giant rolls of parchment paper because I will do like rough sketch any size I want, really, as long as the roll is. You can pounce the back of it. You can just like pigment, charcoal, whatever. Usually I'll use like a bright pigment like the fluorescent, so it shows up on natural wood, and kind of trace it on and then just start painting onto it, especially with these irregular shapes. They're really hard to sketch onto, like keep perspective on a round object. That's the top view. That was in Energy Innovation Center. And this is Nick Parendo, stained glass artist. He passed away a few years ago. It was over in West End. This is a project I do. These paintings are called like ripple effect. Every painting, like they auction them, and each painting is enough to fund a well from start to finish in South Sudan, Africa. All I have to do is paint a painting, and then I get like these pictures of kids getting free, easy access to water. I had kids, and it's like how like terrible would it be, especially over like the start of COVID. I mean, I don't know how many times I washed my hands. Everybody, it was like, what if you didn't have water? Like last Christmas we didn't have water Christmas morning because the water main broke for like 3 hours. But it was like, you would have thought it was the end of the world. And it just reinforces like, if I can just do, it's what I love to do anyways. So that's it. I mean, I could keep going, and there are other tangents and ways I could keep talking, but
It's up to you. You're the one who, I don't want your wife to be stranded. But
see if she landed yet.
And you do all this and you still have a day job?
No, this is it. Yeah. So I worked with Linda, then worked at the distributor service. 2008, like market housing building just kind of crashed. And my wife is like awesome, most efficient, smartest person I know. She started as an admin at Bank of New York Mellon in 2000. She actually just got a new job she was CCO at Citizens Bank up until last month, with an English writing degree, like no background in finance, not a lawyer. She is just like, she can find good people and just bring the best out of them, because it's like, she will not let you waste potential. But I think that's like, I tell her I'm always on the upswing. I'm like, I haven't reached it yet. Like, so you gotta stick around. We've been married 20 years. We've been doing childcare and both of us working. And then when the housing market went, that business was like struggling. It was like she was like, why don't you just stay home? Like, why don't you just do the kid stuff? I was like, that'd be awesome. And it was like the most work I've ever done.
Yeah.
Most rewarding thing I've ever done. She like allowed her to just be like, focus on work, knowing that her kids were in like semi-capable hands. Well, I won't go as far as say capable, but so that was with our middle kid, well, Gabriel and Peter for a little bit. Then Gabriel went to kindergarten, so me and Pete, and then our daughter Gloria was born. And all this time I was doing like contract work for design. I never was very fast at, which if you want to make money at, you need to be like fast at design. But I always painted. And then when Shahadi's thing kind of came in, it was providing enough that it wasn't like, you need to get back out and get a job. It was like, there's money coming in from it. And then it kind of hit its peak in 2019. Then I went into the EIC, and then everything like dropped. But it's all like, for the absolute best was having that time period to just work and figure out all this crazy stuff. And now like July, we just got awarded a Heinz Endowment for the Arts for the Energy Innovation Center as the Arts Accelerator Program. They made me the executive director. I love these titles. It's like so ridiculous. But it allows me to work with, artists that are like starting their careers, don't have any understanding of like, the gatekeeping stuff, artist statements, or how to do a quick bio. Like they get so stressed with like, no one cares. Like just do something, provide it, have your contact information. Yeah. And then make it better as you go, like you'll get better at it. So, and patterns of meaning is like the core of that arts accelerator program. So that happened with Heinz. Then we connected with WHAL, which has been like so fun. And working with them to do a space over on North Shore as part of their pop district. So it's can't get too much into the details yet, but there's a space over there that we're going to transform and then create a retail gallery, artist in residence space that will work with the Warhol to, again, the whole idea is like bring in artists that, are early career, work with established artists, figure out how to market, sell, and promote, which is like, that's the bottom, like you have to self promote. No one's going to do it for you. So I've been, no, it's not. You have questions? I can do some questions. I didn't even turn this guy around. So we went from like, don't touch anything to like, we have so much stuff, we have to do something with it. And like one of my favorite comments in the studio, like Nate Lucas is in there like every day. He's like, we're developing a full wood shop. But like going to work on this, a pattern piece, it's like, let's see if I can ruin this today. So it's just like simple stuff that I never ever would have used, which is, just some gilding. But it really helps you see like the shape and how these things are put together.
It's like blast furnace.
It's crazy. Nate will put like an orange plate behind it and then it glows. These frames, like they're just made like that. So because people know I like, I'll make this stuff. There's a whole collection of a building that's gonna be demolished. So like if you can get them out, they're yours. It's like it makes the barn, this is in progress. It makes the barn look like a cakewalk. It's the third or the fifth floor of a warehouse that does not have an elevator. And there's just tons of these things. So I've moved, there was a whole rack of these frame pieces. I just pull them out and then I'll figure out an image that I want to put in them. And I use these as like, these are my QED like tote bags. So Pittsburgh Green Innovators is a 501c3 that's in Pittsburgh Gateways Corporation. So I'm able to use like, gifts for donations. So they can be a fiduciary for this patterns project. And like a joke at our house too. I don't know if my wife thinks of that. It's that funny. But so for 2 years, like I still get commission work. I do regular residential design, commercial design stuff. Everything for 2 years just went into and as I told them, like the pattern shaped hole. I mean, it was every dollar to maintain the gym space, to buy tools, to move stuff around, do all this stuff. We had a show at Pittsburgh Botanic Gardens, which I don't think I had pictures on this. Was awesome. So we were getting paid to set up exhibits. Airport was a paid exhibit. We have a museum show coming up in Milwaukee in January that will run for 5 months. That's at the Groman Museum. It's an all industrial art museum, part of the Milwaukee School of Engineering. It's awesome. Groman is still alive, which is, I think, really cool. Like the guy 15 years ago just said, I'm going to build a giant museum for industrial art. That coincides with the American Foundry Society's like giant conference in Milwaukee. Then there's this group called the Steel Founders Society of America that they just love the idea of kind of instead of like hiding history or looking at it only through like a negative lens. Like I feel there's a danger of looking at history only on the negative, just as there's a danger of only looking at it through a positive lens, right? So it's like a telescope or a camera. You need those two lenses to align to get a clearer picture and understanding of, like where we are now. So like some steel companies don't want to talk about their history. Others see the value in showing young people, especially, what they did, what they built. And guess what? You can be a part of this too. Software engineers, mechanical engineers, and chemists. Like steel is super high tech. It's, it's not green, it's necessary, and it's definitely got better than it was 100 years ago. It's electric arc furnaces. It's mostly recycled materials. So there's like a real story there. And it's like building the actual world instead of building these virtual worlds. So, but maybe that's it. Yeah. Jim McMurray, I've never heard from him again. So if he's still alive, I got to connect with him because he was awesome. Yeah, I had him for drawing human anatomy, which saved me and allowed me to graduate because, like, not a great student. Went to my counselor, like, end of senior year, and like, you're missing a credit. I was like, what? Because I had taken anatomy of the human head, which is another drawing class with McMurray. Like, you took this out of order, it was some technicality, and the chair of the department looked at the transcripts and was like, you had Jim McMurray for anatomy and you got an A. I was like, yeah. He's like, you're good. Yeah, so they were just like, yeah, Larry's like, you're good. I'm like, thank goodness. But yeah, that's I don't know. It's still anything else?
I mean, I enjoyed, you were clearly passionate about Pittsburgh and about art, and it's quite enjoyable to see.
Yeah, it's not planned. It all happened very. Yeah,
I have a question.
yeah.
How do you paint at 4 AM?
It's autopilot, like 11 or 11:30. I don't know. It's like it's not good. There's like as long as I get in, I'm at a point now where it is just it's autopilot. Like I know what I'm going into work on. I don't. I don't even think. I mean, it is like sit down and just start working, and it's like my alarm goes off at 3:45. My alarm goes off at 6:45, and I wrap up and head home. And it's like, I don't know, like I'll go through the rest of my day, whatever needs done, if it's meetings, if it's kids stuff, if it's whatever, like cleaning the toilets. Which all this stuff needs done, right? After a week or a month, I could be working on a piece that's like a 9 foot tall painting. I'll come in one day and be like, oh, like I didn't even realize how much I got done on this. Right. It's like I don't even know what's done. Yeah, it's like sleepwalking through the process. But it works for me. I mean, it's just well, no one can mess with that time. If someone interrupts 4 a.m. to 7 a.m., like something really bad has happened. Yeah. So that's it. I have the space. It's kind of like I do some tours sometimes. If like groups want to come down, I'd be happy to like work out. It's a beautiful building. It's incredible. And like if you've been in the other parts of the whole building is incredible. But the workspace is just like I can't believe I'm in there all the time. Just
Sitting on top of it.
yeah, it's pretty great. All right, now I really am.